Mr. Mayor, we're live.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Oro-Medonte Council meeting of November 8th, 2023, with the land acknowledgement. The Township of Oro-Medonte acknowledges that we are situated on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe people and ancestral territory of the Huron-Wendat. The Anishinaabe include the Odawa, the Ojibwe, and the Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. It continues today as a home for diverse Indigenous people, including the historic Métis community in Penetangwisheen. The Anishinaabe people continue to have an enduring relationship with this land, specifically the Chippewas of Rama First Nations, the Chippewa Tri-Council, and the Williams Treaties First Nations. The Huron-Wendat also continue to pay respect and protect their ancestors and heritage on this land. We honor the Indigenous history and culture that has thrived for millennia in the territory and the treaties that bind us together as partners in the spirit of a shared, sustainable, and prosperous future. We are all treaty people. Our commitment begins with acknowledging the truth so that we can move forward together towards reconciliation. Miigwech. I'd also like to take this opportunity to recognize that it is National Indigenous Veterans Day. So, that said, Madam Clerk, may we have a motion to adopt the agenda, please?
Moved by Bard, seconded by Lavoie. Be it resolved that the agenda for the council meeting of Wednesday, November the 8th, 2023 be received and adopted.
All in favor? That is carried. May we have a motion to go past 4 hours if necessary, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Shell, seconded by Hutchison. Be it resolved that Rule 14.20A, as per the procedural bylaw number 2023-043, be suspended in order to allow the meeting to proceed past the 4-hour adjournment requirement if necessary.
Thank you. All in favor? That is carried. Are there any members of council that have any pecuniary interest to disclose at this time? Seeing none, may we have a motion to go into closed session, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Clark, seconded by Young. Be it resolved that we do now go into closed session at 1:35 p.m. to discuss labor relations, employee negotiations, staffing, organizational update.
All in favor? That is carried. We'll see everyone in closed, and we should be back in about approximately just under an hour.
Mr. Mayor, we are live.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Madam Clerk. May we have a motion to rise from close, please?
Moved by Lavoie, seconded by Bard. Be it resolved that we do now rise at 2:53 p.m. and report on closed session item C, Robin Dunn, 4C. Robin Dunn, CAO, Labor Relations, Employee Negotiations, Staffing, Organizational Update.
All in favor? That is carried. And may we have a motion for item 4C, please, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Young, seconded by Shell. Be it resolved that the confidential verbal information presented by Robin Dunn, CAO, Labor Relations, Employee Negotiations, Staffing, Organizational Update be received, and that staff and legal counsel proceed as outlined.
All in favor? That is carried. And may we have a motion for 2 sets of minutes, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Hutchison, seconded by Bard. Be it resolved that the draft minutes of the council meeting held on Wednesday, October the 11th, 2023 be received and adopted as printed and circulated, and that the draft minutes of Heritage Committee meeting held on Monday, October 16th, 2023 be received.
Thank you. Council, any amendments to the minutes? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. We have no, well, actually, first I want to welcome everybody to the chamber today. It's glad to see that everyone's getting out, and welcome to the deputations that have also come forward to today. We have no recognitions of achievements this week or public meetings, so we'll move to the deputations, of which we have 2. The first will be a deputation by Mayor Alex Nuttall. Before I ask you to call, just so the rules of engagement are 10 minutes to present, and the idea of this is not for discussions, it's primarily for council to have clarity to what is being presented by the presenters. So I'd ask Your Worship, Alex Nuttall, to step to the podium when we're ready to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. Just quickly, if there's members of the public, we might not have enough for everybody, but we do have, I think, about 15 or 16 of the presentation that's also been circulated to you early this afternoon. Okay. So if members of the public would like that, it is there and available. Your Worship, it's not lost on me that this morning was the Mayor's prayer breakfast in the city of Barrie, and I was prayed for an hour and a half, and I think they knew I was coming here to make this presentation today. Certainly it is an honor to be in front of you. It's not the first time I've been in these chambers. I've been here a number of times, previously as a member of Parliament for about half of Oro-Medonte, all of Springwater, and about half of the city of Barrie, and also with relation to when I was a resident here in Oro-Medonte. Mr. Mayor and members of council, the city of Barrie, I want to go through a presentation. The reason we updated it was I think that with all of the time that was had with the previous one, and now we've made our presentation to the province, we wanted to update you publicly with a similar, if not the exact same presentation as we made on Monday. The only difference I think that I would outline is that there were letters of support that were handed over to the province, including all 5 living mayors from the city of Barrie prior to myself. And so those have been submitted to the province, but roughly around 407 or 408 letters were submitted. We had about 420 as of this morning, folks that had submitted them between Monday and today. So Barrie, as you know, is geographically in Simcoe County, but we are not part of Simcoe County in the sense that we are a single-tier municipality that's able to respond to things in a very quick way. When it comes to getting homes built, the province has given us a lofty goal, but we have been working very hard, not just this council, but previous councils, to cut red tape and to ensure that we are being as efficient and effective as possible to get housing built, not just for the city of Barrie, but quite frankly, for everybody in the region. In fact, Build, which oversees essentially a reporting structure and lobbying, said the city of Barrie, 2 reports in a row, was the best GTA municipality to do work in. The province gave us a goal of 23,000 new units to build in the city of Barrie over a 10-year period. Between January 1st of this year and today, we've had about it's actually last Wednesday, but we've had 1,850 housing starts. Those are basements poured or foundations poured in the city of Barrie. On top of that, we've approved 4,641 units, totally approved, ready to pull permit on in the year 2023. Additionally, there's 5,211 units that are part of the CHIA process. The CHIA is the provincial program that was created to allow municipalities to, instead of go through the MZO, to take the decision-making process up to the province. And we have 5,211 units that fall within that, including a long-term care center, which is being proposed for Yonge Street opposite the GO train station at Mapleview and Yonge. We also, on the 16th of this month, next Thursday, will be announcing properties that the City of Barrie is going to be releasing into the marketplace over the next few months. And through that, we're hoping to create an additional 3,000 new residential units in the City of Barrie. When you add all those numbers up, it ends up being somewhere in the neighborhood of 12,500 units. The City of Barrie this year is putting through the approvals process, or roughly 23% of the existing number of units in the City of Barrie. When you add on top of that the 13,000 that were previously approved under previous councils, you see somewhere in the neighborhood of 50% of the existing number of doors in the City of Barrie have been approved for residential construction. This means that as a city, we are far surpassing the goals that have been allocated by the province of Ontario to create housing. And all of those houses that will be built, every single one will be on municipal sewer and services, and will have access to transit either through the traditional transit system or transit on demand, which is similarly where you end up getting a vehicle to pick you up and take you to a close bus stop. What we are in need of, and what we were not able to get done correctly in the past, is industrial supply. The City of Barrie, as you know, was involved in an annexation process in Innisfil that resulted in essentially a large piece of property coming into the City of Barrie. I can't remember the exact size, but with that, originally there was an allocation of 30,000 individuals or residential population, and on top of that was going to be 10,000 employment positions. Through that process, at the last vote, there was a change, and it was changed to 45,000 people and 5,000 jobs. The result is that we have a lot of people moving to Barrie, and a lot of building, as we've shown, is happening, but we do not have the jobs for those folks. And certainly we've always recognized that there hasn't been enough employment here in the City of Barrie for the amount of populations here. I think that gets exacerbated when you step outside of our boundary, when you think about what was approved with the Midhurst secondary plan. Close to 30,000 people, I think it might actually be 30,000 people, were approved in the Midhurst secondary plan with no commercial industrial jobs to go alongside that. And so the whole region's facing this. We want to see this issue come to a head. We want to see opportunity created locally here. And we believe the City of Barrie is uniquely positioned because, unlike almost anywhere in the province of Ontario, we've invested heavily over the years in water and wastewater services and transit services. The City of Barrie's current wastewater or sewage treatment plant, we invested $250 million in 2011, it may have been 2010. We've approved another $250 million improvement on that facility. And we also brought in the water treatment facility, which is essentially a massive straw that goes into the lake, treats the water before it's gone through the water system and is drinkable. So we've invested in the infrastructure and it's already there. So what we're proposing, Your Worship and members of council, is the opportunity for Oro-Medonte and Barrie to work together, and also, it's obviously been in the news, so I'll say the other municipality as well, Springwater as well, to bring online industrial zoned land so that we can right-size a problem, not just for the City of Barrie, not just for the City of Barrie residents, but quite frankly, for the entire area's residents of not having enough jobs. There's, I think, a few things that we need to consider, or from the City of Barrie's perspective, we have considered throughout this process. Number one, environmental conservation, because it's important that the beautiful environment that we all get to call home is sustained for many, many years to come. The second one is that there needs to be value to all municipalities involved. That means the City of Barrie, it's really easy to communicate the value, right? I can tell you in 10 seconds. What the question will be, obviously, for you folks and for others is, where is the value to Oro-Medonte and to our surrounding municipalities? Thirdly, employment opportunities for all of our residents, which I think is obviously a benefit to everybody in the region. And finally, potential additional housing opportunities. To start with environmental conservation, the City of Barrie over the last number of terms has purchased land around Little Lake. Those purchases have been done in order to allow for Little Lake to be again preserved. Anything that comes on the market, we try to purchase, and we will be putting that into environmental trust alongside any future purchases that take place around Little Lake. Additionally, we're going to put the existing land that we own in the Bear Creek wetlands and along the Hewitts Creek corridor into a similar trust, if not the same one, and ensure that those can't be nibbled away at by development in the future. In terms of employment areas and employment opportunities, we are constrained, as I said. We had a report that came to council, or a memo that came to council, sorry, in Barrie a few weeks ago that said there was essentially 220 serviceable acres left in the City of Barrie. We have opportunities that require more than 220 acres. Those 220 acres are not contiguous. They are broken up into little pieces around the city, and they're being brought online, but they don't help when you have a major manufacturer come to the table. So we are asking for a boundary adjustment. As part of that boundary adjustment, we're asking that the municipalities around us allow us to bring on some more industrial land within our own boundary from yours, and at the same time that we provide servicing back in order for you to bring on some of your own employment land in your own municipality as well. We believe that this will set up the City of Barrie and, quite frankly, the entire area for the next 20 years. And we believe that this will generate somewhere in the neighborhood of 20,000 new industrial manufacturing and warehousing jobs over the next 20 years. This isn't 20,000 jobs right away. It's a long period of time it would take in order to reach those goals. As I said, we want to be able to provide some.
Sorry, Mayor Nuttall, I apologize,
No
but I'm just going to ask council for we can break from procedure in order to allow more time, because I think this is an important issue we want to be fully informed on. And so, Madam Clerk, is that okay as long as I ask council? Council members, are we okay with allowing Mayor Nuttall to continue on? Thank you very much. Please continue. I apologize for the interruption.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry for going over. I didn't realize I'd hit 10 minutes yet, but I guess that comes with the employment as a politician. With regards to what we would like to see, there's a couple of things. Number one is that the land, as I said, in your jurisdiction would be serviced, but we wouldn't want to create an island of where there are Barrie lands and Oro-Medonte lands and so on and so forth, recognizing this is all your land right now. So there's probably a time lapse between a servicing of an Oro-Medonte piece and anything that potentially could be brought online. Taking that into perspective, what we're proposing is that we would actually pay you back from the taxation created through any new industrial opportunities that exist in the City of Barrie. And then that would end once you're able to bring lands online as part of your own employment area. But that these employment areas would be continuous and contiguous so that they could work off of each other, and we could have all of our clusters working together to obviously compete around the world. Finally, I'll end with, we have a different situation in terms of governance. As a single-tier municipality, as I said, we're fast-moving. We're able to move very quickly. That's not the reality that you live in. I understand that and respect that completely. And I also understand that there's another tier of government that you have to be working with and through constantly. But for the city of Barrie, we are a strong partner for the province when it comes to housing. We need to make sure that we're a strong partner for the province when it comes to employment, and that has been our goal all along. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, members of council.
Thank you very much, Mayor Nuttall. Members of council, I'll now open the floor for questions to Mayor Nuttall, if there are any. Councillor Schell.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Greenlaw, through you to Alex Nuttall. I've always asked the question, like, the property is still there. Why do we need to move the boundary? Because if you move the boundary, it's like taking the fence, moving it over here, but you're still going to build there.
Yeah, I'm going to answer the first half of that if I could, Your Worship, and then I would ask that our CAO answer the second half of it because there's two pieces to it. From the, and I completely respect the question, from the city's standpoint in terms of the financials, you know, we've invested, like I said, call it $750 million total. Not all of it's out the door yet, but by the time our system's up and running to allow our city to grow to where the province has allocated us to go, it's $750 million in these services. And the payback of those isn't done through the provision of a monthly bill. The services are brought online through development charges and through taxation. And ideally, in an ideal world, 100% of it would be development charges because it's directly related to growth. Having said that, previously it was 90% of those dollars would come on through development charges. Today, it's probably about 70% according to our staff because of the changes in Bill 119 and Bill 23. And so, you know, the idea that the city of Barrie's taxpayers are throwing in, you know, 30% of 750 million, just call it 250, I know it's not exactly right, but 250 million, and then it just being shipped next door is not something that I think that we could do in terms of the city of Barrie's finances. There's a second reason, and I'm going to pass that over to our CAO with regards to the provision of services cross-border and some of the experiences we've had.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall, and thank you for the question, Councillor. The City of Barrie has very strong policies and principles around controlling our water and wastewater for very good reasons. We have billions, quite literally billions of dollars invested, our residents' money in our infrastructure. Controlling that and protecting that is paramount for the City of Barrie. So our principle and our view is that we should always control the area that we service with very few exceptions. We have had in our history, without going into specific details, issues around effluence, where we have had bad actors in the community that have actually put at risk our infrastructure. And without the ability to immediately act and take action on those bad actors, we put the entire system at risk, including, frankly, the water that is shared between Barrie and Oro-Medonte, which is the Great Lake beside us. So we take those principles and those situations quite seriously, and we believe fundamentally that we need to be able to react and control our water and our wastewater because it is so critical to our community and, frankly, to yours too.
Thank you. I totally respect that, those comments, because I happen to be in that industry and I've actually worked on your sewage plant a few times, and I've worked on the Aurelia city water inlets and outlets also. So I do have a bit of a background there, so I do know that you've broken up Blake Street. I can't tell you how many times I've traveled that road, so many times, and it's broken up for you to increase your infrastructure. And I'm pretty sure your sewage plant is at max or pretty close to max now, or will be in the very near future.
Can I just answer that quickly? So sort of, we've approved and are, I think, currently engineering the expansion, and I believe we have 5,000 to 10,000 units left, or something around that. 5,000 to 10,000 units.
Yeah, I'm just curious on the physics side of it. When you come up Blake Street and up Penetang Machine Road, how much further north in Oro-Medonte can you extend those services without having major pumping stations along the way?
Yeah, I think that's obviously a very important point. I think that if you see the map that was circulated as part of the presentation from last week that's on the minutes here, you'll see that it says study area. So it isn't, you know, what was done was the City of Barrie said, hey, this is an area we want to look into. Some of that we've actually identified internally as well. So obviously, like yourself, we have professionals that are going through this and trying to determine what's currently something that could happen versus what is 20 years out or perhaps maybe not even possible. And so those are ongoing, those pieces. But to me, when I look at it, and I'm just a guy driving a truck when I say this, driving down the street, once you hit the edge of the hill, you're going into big dollars. And so there is some of that truth, and that's why it's a study area, not a final area.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Lavoie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and through Mr. Mayor to Mr. Mayor. You're talking about 20 plus years to see this development and 23,000 jobs. We do have an official plan here in Oro-Medonte. The county has an official plan, and I believe the city of Barrie has an official plan, all of which have been executed through a public transparency process, and all of which have taken a number of years to develop and involved a number of experts. And I'm wondering why we wouldn't continue along that path. Simcoe County being a much larger entity than the city of Barrie, having a considerable amount of expertise and wherewithal, if we wouldn't just continue along with the existing corridors of industrial development that have already been identified and approved, particularly in the area of Oro-Medonte along Highway 11 and in the vicinity of the airport, which would also be of higher value to industrial partners for us all. I see this route personally as perhaps a wiser route, since there's been much broader participation amongst all of the townships, even with the separated cities, and I'm wondering why we wouldn't continue along that path. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Deputy Mayor. I think that there's a few things that maybe need to be right-sized in that. Number one is that the county, as far as I know, does not run all of the wastewater and water throughout the region. In fact, the greatest access to water and wastewater inside this entire region is the city of Barrie, and it's come at great expense to those taxpayers. And so at the request of the province, they asked us to put an official plan together. It wasn't my council that did that. Our council inherited the decision-making essentially only from the province, at which point we approved what the province sent back to us in terms of the official plan. But I don't think that we should miss the opportunity to make sure that our region is competing with businesses around the world. When you look at the investment that's taking place in the United States, one of the largest pieces of foreign investment, in fact, the largest piece of foreign investment across the United States right now is in the manufacturing sector. And we do not have the capacity to compete, to the point where our own businesses are looking. Yes, there's one that just came out to the fourth line, but that's not the only one. There's many others that are looking for opportunities to grow and expand. And if we don't give them that opportunity here, they're going to look for it somewhere else. And one of the things that we face as a province, quite frankly, is that we aren't able to compete on the tax side with the southern United States, who offer all types of these tax incentives to move businesses there. So the way that we compete is, hey, we've got public transit, we've got the world-class college in Georgian College, we've got municipal services that make sure that anything that's going towards the lake doesn't pollute the lake. And we're doing all of that while adhering to the environmental standards that the province has put in place. You have a beautiful area up at the 7th line. There's no question. I don't think anybody anywhere should be, questioning that at all. There are some issues with relation to services up there, but you do have an airport. I think eventually it is an incredible opportunity for Oro-Medonte, which I hope you explore completely.
Deputy Mayor, any supplemental on that, just while you have the mic?
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, I certainly appreciate the notion that the southern U.S. has competed over several decades with regard to employment and tax incentives, and came from an industry where we lost a couple of steel mills to the southern U.S. However, I think the provincial government and the federal government have put billions of dollars into attracting industry, and it's certainly not something at the municipal level that we have the opportunity to do, other than perhaps through local taxation and development service charges. But notwithstanding any of that, I think the other part I think that might concern some of the residents that I've heard from in this is that this parcel of land is very proximate to the city of Barrie on the west, and a significant area in Oro-Medonte to the south. And those citizens might be concerned about industrial traffic and the other activities such as noise, light, dust, and other forms of pollution that would invade those areas through, I don't know if the 23,000 jobs would be there, I presume they wouldn't, but I think there are some inherent issues with regard to that parcel of land in particular that don't augur well for municipal relations regarding those industries. And having been in a very aggressive metallurgical industry myself, I know that having residential partners in the very close vicinity to it, you get nothing but complaints. And I don't know what it'll do to their property values, and I don't know what it'll do to the satisfaction or quality of life that they might experience going on in the future. And I offer those as comments. I offer them, I don't know what remedy that we might be able to provide as municipal partners, but those are big concerns. And of course, we're looking at taking away a large chunk of prime agricultural land, which I think will attract the attention of the agricultural community, and we might hear from them in the coming days and months. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. And so one thing, we want to keep these, as my mother within the chambers gives me the eye to let me know that questions is what we're asking in order to get responses back. One question I would have for you, Mayor Nuttall, is if you could help me understand, you say the burden is fallen upon the taxpayers of the city of Barrie to build the wastewater plants. And from an article I read the other day, I don't think you were misquoted, you're looking for the government to come to the table for $200 million to help with the infrastructure development in the south end of Barrie. So I guess, my question is, the wastewater facilities that currently reside in Barrie, they were 100% paid by and were not supported or subsidized by the federal government or any other organization.
Yeah, that's right. So the previous $500 million of investments and the 250 that we've said yes to right now received zero provincial or federal support.
They never have received any support.
They've never received support. So the 250 million that we proceeded with, we used a massive debenture.
Yeah.
You see, I'm pulling the sweat away because that's 250 million of debt. And the same with the water treatment facility. We went alone. We actually applied to the feds during the 2008 crises for some of their economic action plan funding and didn't receive any money for that for either of those projects.
No, so I guess my question is, but you're asking for the government to help with the infrastructure in the south end.
Yeah, we'll take any dollars that the province wants to give us, and I know you would too.
Yeah, no. But I'm just trying to find clarity to understand. Without a doubt, I'm going to say, to us, giving up land is forever, and you can't reverse it, and it's concerning when the province and the upper levels of government will not let us build and develop on our lands, but will allow an adjacent neighbor to come take our lands and do whatever they want with them. So I think that's kind of something that I question, and I don't think you have the answer, and I haven't got the answer from the province either. So,
Your Worship, I'm thinking just on the previous question, there was something I mentioned with regards to the South End industrial lands. And, you know, we originally about 6 or 7 years ago said that they would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $80 to $100 million to service. Today, obviously, those costs are much, much higher, which I think might be what you're referring to. And I believe it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $140 million to service. And we have asked the province, look, we don't have industrial land to come online. So we either need it from adjacent to our current pipes, or we need the funding to be able to build a whole bunch of new pipe to get there. So I just got confused about which, because there's multiple things happening.
Okay. No, thank you for that clarity. I guess, you know, I look at it from the perspective of, it seems to be that it's a non-starter, that we pay a premium hookup fee to tie in and we develop the lands on our property and pay an ongoing revenue stream if the capacity is there. I know we have had discussions and recommending the same, because we are a rural agricultural municipality. Land is one of the gems we have. It's a very, very valuable. It's like the water and the moraine. If we're going to get nibbled from the north and the south by two urban centers, at what point is Oro-Medonte sustainable as an agricultural community on its own? So we have to look at protecting, and so the question comes back to, if we paid a premium hookup fee and ongoing revenue into your water systems, is that not a viable option for the city of Barrie?
So so first of all, from the staff's perspective, no, and I think that the CAO kind of explained why, in the sense that we need to be able to manage that and react to it immediately. The costs associated with even this area are substantive. I think, and Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that it was roughly about a total infrastructure spend of $2 billion. Is that? The study area? Yeah, the study area?
Correct. High level.
High level, $2 billion spend in the study area. Now, some of that's municipal, some of that's DC related from future things would happen. Some of that's put in by the actual developers. They're building out whatever they're building. But the dollars required to proceed are humongous. And I'm not sure how I would put a priority on that happening outside of our boundary when we don't have access directly to the taxation that's going to back that up. It wouldn't make really any sense at all.
Okay. Councillor Clark?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Nuttall. Good to see you. I think my colleagues here have alluded to the fact that we have concerns with the process here. I know you were quoted the other day in the newspaper kind of saying you wanted to keep this as part of the confidential agreement, and now we've gotten to a point where we're no longer. You requested to be here as part of this discussion. My question to you, my first question, if I may have multiple, is at whose request was the confidentiality?
So I think that you might be mixing up Oro-Medonte and Springwater. So if you just read in the newspaper, I can see why you would say that. With regards to the question that was being asked to me at the time, there was a piece that was asked around the exact pieces of property and what was being discussed between municipalities. And there was a previous confidential meeting with Springwater that I wanted to maintain as confidential. That was not the case with Oro-Medonte, but as you can imagine, if you start opening the door, where do you end up? And so it's better that I, at that point, respect Springwater's confidentiality, and I believe they've actually subsequently voted to keep those items confidential as well.
Okay. Supplemental, if I may.
Please continue.
In your proposal, you kind of coalesce or integrate the fact that you're doing an environmental conservancy as part of this deal. My question would be, why don't you have those as two separate things? I mean, if you have the land and are willing to do that environmental donation to protect our heritage, why is it with strings attached?
Well, I don't think it's with strings attached. I think that this is something that's, matured throughout the process. And so as we're able to take these things into consideration and then add them into what is, I think, a better planning solution as we go through, that's what's been happening. Secondly, I think that there's lands within Oro-Medonte that probably would need to fall into the same sort of conservancy based on the fact that they are, marshlands or whatnot. And I think that it's important that it's not looked at just as single pieces of property, but we actually take a much wider focus on this. If you think about Couchiching and what they've done throughout the region, I think they actually come down as far south as a couple of pieces inside Oro-Medonte. I think that that's something that we would like to see happen over time. And so this conservancy that we're talking about starting, I hope it doesn't stop at the Barrie border, and I hope it doesn't start or stop through this process because, as you said, it shouldn't rely on industrial land coming into the city of Barrie. But in terms of the communication of this, I think it's important that we talk about all aspects because when land is being developed, there are, and even on any single piece of property, there's a piece that could be industrial and there's pieces on the back end that could be environmentally protected. And so we need to make sure we're having all parts of the conversation when we're chatting.
Supplemental.
You had quoted, or your CAO, apologies, I can't remember his name, the $2 billion infrastructure cost to develop our land and subsequently, if you'd like, your land. Have you looked at what the land, the 5,600 acres that was annexed in Innisfil, what the total infrastructure cost would be there for lands that you already own? Obviously, there's issues with what the province has said from a residential versus industrial land. To tie in one last quick question, I want to clarify the letters of support from the previous mayors. Were they letters of support for these specific lands or for employment lands in the city of Barrie in general?
They were letters of support to bring on new lands, and each one of those individuals was told directly by myself what our plan was.
Okay, so
Yeah.
to clarify, they were in support of annexing or boundary adjustment for Oro-Medonte and potentially Springwater.
They were in support of going north for more industrial land because the cost of south.
Okay, so to my first part of that question, what is the infrastructure cost for the cost of the south?
So there's multiple pieces that you're discussing. In terms of the total infrastructure cost of south, we can get that information for you, email it over. I wouldn't want to give you that number because I don't know, and my CAO doesn't know off the top of his head either. With regards to the actual costs associated with the industrial lands to the south, to put the pipe in the ground and get it over there is roughly, it's north of $100 million, could be north of $140 million, just depending on what happens in the market over the next number of years.
Okay. Councillor Schell.
Thank you, Mayor Greenlaw. Just a comment. Our industrial areas right now are not on municipal services. And any others that come in our area, they're not on municipal services. And with my background, I know that you drill a hole in the ground, you put a pump in it, you pull up your water, you have storage facilities underground for firefighting, and you have a septic system for effluent. That's a lot cheaper than running $100 million for running a pipeline to a sewage plant.
Yes, I think part of the challenge is the amount of land you need for septic runoff and that for industrial facilities would be a much grander scale. And I think it is, if possible, it is the number one choice is to have it into municipal wastewater management systems, which would be collected on a larger scale. I guess, I think, Councillor, my apologies, I got to look more right. So, Councillor Hutchison.
Thank you, Mayor Greenlaw, through you to Mayor Nettle. This is a process question as well. So clearly it appears that you've consulted with multiple parties with regards to this proposal that we're seeing today, including 5 former mayors of Barrie. And here we are, the council in Oro-Medonte, and we represent the key stakeholders in this arrangement. And really, we've only learned this week about the depth and the scope of this project. And my question to you is, how did this proposal move from what we were presented early in 2023 to what we're seeing today without our knowledge?
Well, thank you, Councillor, for the question. I've communicated since early 2023 pretty well exactly what is on your agenda, and certainly for us, when we're looking at the process and having a study area, the study area is much larger than what potentially you end up with, right? So there was a full look across the board to see what made sense and what didn't. In terms of discussion inside the City of Barrie, we had a confidential motion to discuss this ourselves. Our council voted to make this public, and as the chair council, I did that to the provincial government on Monday.
Any further questions, Councillor Hutchison? No. Okay, thank you. I guess the one question and then we can wrap up this. If you, my understanding is you've well exceeded your housing targets that you've been set by the province. So why would you not, as the OPs have been rolled back, why would you not reconsider amending your OP, reestablishing the industrial land in the south where you're adjacent to a 6-lane highway and closer to the city, rather than come north and develop where you're getting off what I consider one of the least friendly tractor trailer off-ramps on Highway 11, to get on 93 to come in a county road that's maybe not up to grade and develop industrial lands across the street from a residential zone. So you're going to have significant or potentially a lot of disgruntled residents living across from an industrial park of that magnitude that you're building. So I just was wondering why you have not considered or amending your OP in order to move the industrial lands down to what I would see as a better solution, or leveraging your partnership with Simcoe County and focusing on putting industrial lands and drawing international manufacturers to the 7th line adjacent to the airport.
So there's a number of questions in that. I'll start at the end one with regards to the airport. Unlike Oro-Medonte, we are a shareholder in the airport. We have invested heavy dollars in the airport through both cash investments as well as foregoing any shareholder payments. And we're very proud of that. Not only are we proud of that, we're also proud of the fact that we also have our train tracks still going. We made a decision to preserve the train tracks. That doesn't just help the City of Barrie residents. I'm sure you all know somebody who takes the GO train to Toronto every day. Well, guess what? 8 million of 24 million was paid for by the City of Barrie, 8 by the province, 8 by the feds. And so we have invested in infrastructure, and we've invested in land and services around that infrastructure, including in Oro-Medonte. With regards to Penetanguishene Road, Highway 93, I think it's also important to recognize that, you know, the people that you're speaking, the most of the people that you're speaking about, they live in Barrie. And those folks, many of them are going to Georgian College. And the idea that we can somehow bring in our institution, those individuals and industry into the same place to do lots of good in terms of creating jobs, economic output, all of those things, is an incredible idea. But it also goes beyond that. You know, we at Georgian College, and those students that live across the street, they're getting trained in plumbing, electrical, carpentry. And just yesterday, we had a prefab home builder come to Barrie and say, we want to build a facility of 100,000 square feet. Where do we go? And we want to basically partner with the college on their programs. I can't point them anywhere right now. And so is there going to be some people that are upset? 100%. Is it going to change some people's lives who've invested their entire life savings into the properties that they call home? 100%. We currently have 40,000 people driving down the highway. We're bringing in all these people because the province is telling us to, and we don't have any possibility to expand to include jobs for those folks, whether they're in Barrie, in Oro-Medonte, or in Springwater, which I think Springwater is a glaring one of 30,000 and no commercial or industrial jobs to boot.
Okay. So have you had discussions or reached out to Simcoe County, the County of Simcoe, about how you can move together collectively with them on this?
On industry? Or this specific piece?
Well, let's make it a two-part question, industry and B, the specific piece.
Yes, so both. My CAO, I would probably guess some of those conversations are still confidential at this point. So we are working with the county on specifically transportation infrastructure, how to best use it, how to bring on lands around it, and who should be investing in it. And so I think that over the next few months, you'll see some of those conversations play out at your county council table, and I'm guessing eventually you might have to come to your township table as well. So on the broader piece, 100%. I have spoken directly with the warden on 2 occasions with regards to what we're talking about here today. From the warden's perspective, he has said, you're the person and Springwater are the people that need to be discussed with. And I completely respect that, and certainly we've gone down that road.
Okay, and are they in support of your direction versus what they're envisioning as part of their strategic direction on
I've received no feedback.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Well, if there's no other questions, I really want to thank you, and I apologize if you think this is like a drill that we're putting you through, but I think it'll condition you better for future representation to the city of Barrie. So,
look, by looking at me, I definitely need better conditioning.
No, it's all good. Okay. Thank you very much for your time and answering our questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman.
Okay, so that will bring us to our next deputation. I understand Dan Parle and Ed Evans are in the audience for the second deputation. Welcome. I do
Mr.
apologize.
Mayor, we do have a resolution with respect to Mayor Nuttall's deputation.
Okay, did you want to do them at the end? Do you want to do them individually? We'll go ahead, please.
Okay. Moved by Bard, seconded by Clark. Be it resolved that the information presented by Mayor Alex Nuttall, City of Barrie, proposed servicing land options, Oro-Medonte / Barrie be received. And I also wanted to note that his revised presentation will be uploaded to the township website following the meeting.
Perfect. Thank you very much. You've heard the motion. All in favor? That is received. And welcome. And I apologize. You don't have a name tag, and I wouldn't be able to read it from here, anyways. But are you Dan?
I'm Dan.
Okay.
This is my colleague,
Okay.
Ed.
Well, welcome, and I apologize for the last deputation taking a significant amount of time, but we look forward, and you please proceed when you're ready.
We'll be about twice as long. So I have my clock here, and I'm going to.
Yes, and I know it's 10 minutes.
I gotta start.
If that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, try to keep to that. My name is Dan Parle. I'm a retired provincial civil servant, former journalist, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm also a volunteer with Quiet Parks International. Anyways, we appreciate the chance to talk to you. You may not remember, Mayor, but Peter does, when I bumped into you at a community event and I asked about this, and you said, we need you to come and talk to the council. So here I am. Anyways, I also wanted to, Ed Evans is with me as well. He works in the lighting industry and has a lot of technical knowledge. So I thought if you have some questions along that, and Ed will say a few things at the end. Anyways, I just wanted to bring your attention to a couple of issues that I think are really important, and that you have a chance as a council, and Oro-Medonte has a chance to be very progressive on. And many progressive municipalities are acting on these things. But they're kind of long-term, and there's some short-term things too. Many people like me live in Oro-Medonte because we value the night sky, the moon and the stars, the quiet and the peacefulness of our lovely place. And I think a lot of your constituents are worried and upset, as I am, about these issues. They're growing issues. And as a good example, as soon as this deputation was put on your website or whatever, I got an email from someone who lives on Holborn Street, which I'm not exactly sure where that is in Medonte, but some of you probably do, saying he had some issues about light, and that's the reason he lives in Oro-Medonte. I should have sent this ahead of time, but I'll just show you a quick picture. He sent me a couple of pictures. This is, I'll walk around. This is Holborn Street. You can see it there. Quiet street in Oro-Medonte. Has one light. I'm going to expand that a bit. This is what that's our light. So
Okay, you may, just because the live stream won't be able to see you, yeah. But we can actually, if you hold it up at the pedestal or the podium, it would, it's just that your voice will get lost without talking into the mic. My apologies.
will the camera pick this up here?
Yep, I can see it from.
Okay, great. So folks can see it back there. So there's a picture expanded. This is what Ed refers to as a glare bomb. He'll talk about that to you later on, but see, it's not shielded in any way. That leaking light pollution is affecting bats, birds, insects, and humans. Oh, and I got to show you this one. This is what the gentleman sent me the photograph of. That's his newest neighbor on his quiet, dark street that built a house that's lit up very brightly every evening in kind of white light. So you can see it's an issue. I have kind of issues like that with my neighbors as well. Anyways, as a council, it's your obligation to try to look after the health of folks. And I sent you in the package just a literature search about the effect of light and noise pollution on not just wildlife, but humans as well. And there's lots and lots of research of how this affects our health. I won't go into that details, but so in terms of being progressive, there are some things you could do in the short term that are not all that expensive and easy to do, that would start to position Oro-Medonte as a municipality that understands light and dark sky issues. And I put a few of those in. There's simple things like the Dark Sky International Organization has the 5 principles of responsible lighting. It's in your package. But there are things like, the first thing you ask yourself is, do I really need this light? And if I do need it, is it being directed towards purpose rather than being too loud or glare, and so on. So one of the things you could do that'd be a really easy win is just tell your staff that you expect them, when they're planning new lights or new installations or whatever, that they could follow the 5 principles of dark sky. Quiet's really important too. One of the things I put in your package was that many municipalities are now thinking about or banning some of the small engine things that we have, leaf blowers, lawnmowers, whatever, that make a racket. I know many people who say, in my neighborhood, there's never a minute that a leaf blower isn't glowing. I never have a moment of quiet in my neighborhood. Somebody's always running a lawnmower or a leaf blower. These machines are probably going to be outlawed anyways, because they also pollute a lot and will go to batteries, but you could start moving that way. So there's a lot of easy wins here that you could find. And there's some long-term things too. I would like to encourage Oro-Medonte to say we're a municipality that understands the importance of dark skies and quiet, and we're moving towards being a dark sky community and a quiet community. And there are things, some do's, and even some official things you can do that will name us that. I think that'd go over very well, would certainly go over very well with me. So that's all I really came to. It's probably a long process, but I wanted to get on your radar the issues about quiet and dark and why they're important. We can get into depth. You can look at your package. I think what I'll do now is I'll ask Ed just to say a couple of things about lighting, and then we can take your question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan, and thank you, Council, for the opportunity. that as you're probably aware, that with development, that light pollution is a growing problem for every municipality in Canada. And there's a very good news story around this headache, and that's the fact that with the changes in LED lighting technology, there's some pretty straightforward remedies. And fortunately, thanks. And fortunately, in the province of Ontario and many municipalities of Ontario have been adopting, the relatively straightforward processes and criteria of dark sky compliance. I mean, basically, dark sky compliance is a pretty simple principle that now, with unlike traditional lighting, like the street light that Dan showed, which is an undirected light source. It just kind of spills out everywhere. With LED lighting, it's digital, it's fully controllable, and most every, I'm here as a volunteer, as a sustainability advocate, as someone who's a resident who cares about the heritage, the quality of the natural heritage. I do happen to be a lighting professional, work for a very large global company, and that pretty much all major LED companies now, most of their LED lighting is dark sky compliant. That it simply means that unlike the traditional light sources, street lighting, for example, where light goes upwards, all LED lighting that's dark sky compliant must be directed downwards. And again, good news about this is, simply referring this to your town engineer, the internet, there's all sorts of Ontario municipal sources, all sorts of great sources of information on the internet about dark sky compliance. It's a very, very straightforward process. The other, just very quickly, the other great news story about LED, of course, is that very, very significant energy savings. Most street lighting, most public community lighting that you would have, the traditional lighting, would be either metal halide or high pressure sodium technology. When those are easily retrofitted, the existing fixtures are retrofitted with LED, the energy savings are generally in the 50 to 75% range. Now the cost of LED is down significantly. Most LED lighting costs no more than the traditional lighting. You also have the factor of these traditional light sources generally have about a 30,000 hour life, where most of the dark sky compliant LED has 100 to 150,000 hour life. So there's huge maintenance savings. And basically, there's also significant provincial energy incentives for LED lighting. And then finally, now the quality of LED light is actually the same or superior, particularly to when compared to traditional outdoor lighting like high pressure sodium that has that yellowy glow and other sources. So basically, the good news about a nagging headache, and certainly, some of my fondest memories of appreciating where we live is, being able to stand at the end of the driveway, look up in the sky, and actually see the northern lights this far south. I mean, it's an incredible thing. If these practices are adopted, we'll be able to continue to do that. If they're not, we won't be able to enjoy things like that anymore. But again, as I say, very, very straightforward process, and one of those wonderful processes that actually pays for itself. Generally, when you retrofit most any public community traditional fixture, there's a return on investment and payback of 2 or 3 years in that range. So anyways, that's just a little bit of a summary, wealth of knowledge out there. I'm sure your town engineer is already familiar with this. So again, there's lots of community support, and certainly, in my capacity as a resident and a volunteer, I'm more than happy to provide any advice to help move the process along. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Look at that.
Yeah, perfect, 10 minutes.
Perfect.
I'll just add to what Ed has said. The only downside I see of LED lighting is it's now possible, if you want to, for you to light up your house like that picture I showed you. And I see that when I'm driving around Oro-Medonte. And my cousin who lived with me for a while said, why is every time I drive down the street, there's another house that's lit up like the Taj Mahal all night long. And that has really detrimental effects on humans and wildlife. So anyways, I guess.
No, perfect. No, I thank you very much. I'll open the floor up to members of council now for any questions. Well, no,
I guess we're completely comprehensive.
a couple of things. One is you gave a very thorough and educated session. They're trying to absorb it now. Or I limit them to only so many questions a night, and they use them all up early. But no, well, thank you very much for taking time to present. I think it's a great thing, and I know even when I did when I canvassed in my first and second term, and I knocked on doors, and you'd get one out of every maybe 50 people in a neighborhood say, well, we should have more lights, street lights, and my comment back was, well, you may want to have a discussion with the rest of the neighbors on your street first, because yeah, we all do. We all like to go out and sit at night and see the stars and enjoy where we live, because it's something that you don't get when you're in an urban center like downtown Barrie or Orillia or Toronto, right? So,
If I could just finish the story, Peter's my counselor, and his predecessor sent out a thing from Oro-Medonte which said, and I used to work for the OPP, so I have some expertise that said, if you want to cut back crime, lights really cut back crime, right? And I emailed him and I said, please stop telling everybody to use lights to cut down crime. It does work in the city. I'm not, and there are some studies that show that. I'm not convinced that works in the country. Yeah. I think it might actually be the opposite. But there are better ways to cut down crime, and you can put things on timers and things like that. So it's a matter of thinking about quiet and light, and things to do. So I'll just urge you again. I think Oro-Medonte is a progressive municipality, but if we want to continue to be a progressive municipality, moving these ways here would be ahead of the wave that's coming, would save some money long term if you start doing these things now. If you do a gradual conversion of shielding and directing and LED, and people will come and ask you, how did you become a dark sky community, and how did you educate your constituents to do those kind of things? So I'm looking forward to all of you folks being progressive, I hope, on this issue. And Ed and I we have more than enough to do, both of us, trust me, but we're more than willing to help out on any groups or committees or something you may strike to do research on this. So thank you again.
Thank you. And just Councillor Young, did you have a question?
Yeah, just a comment. I wanted to say that the reason there's no questions is because everything you said makes sense. And it was a thorough presentation. Thank you.
I know you as a journalist. I used to cover county council. I know you get inundated stuff. If you have a chance to look at some of these websites or some of this information I've sent to you, I think you'll find it useful. I know at home you got a stack like this that you're supposed to read every week, but if you do get a chance, you'll find it quite educational, I think. Thank you, Councillor, and thank you, Council, again. Thanks again.
Thank you. So, Madam Clerk, is there a motion for this, please?
Moved by Charles, seconded by Lavoie. Be it resolved that the information presented by Dan Perrell and Ed Evans, re Dark Sky and Quiet Refuge, re proposed servicing land options, Oro-Medonte, be received.
All in favor? That is carried. Madam Clerk, we will be taking a 7-minute break, and we'll be back in the chamber, or you know what, we'll be back in the chamber for 5 minutes after 4. That clock is right now, because it was an hour off, but no, perfect. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we are live.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Welcome back, and thank you for the short break. We're now on item 9. So is there any member of the public present to request an agenda item to be considered earlier than it is on the agenda? Nothing needs to be moved forward? Okay, then we'll go to open forum. Madam Clerk, have we have anyone registered from the public for verbal comments on the agenda items tonight?
No, we do not.
Job well done. And we'll go to 11A. Oh, sorry, thank you, Councillor Clark. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to any of the agenda items tonight? Could you please come to the mic and announce your, give your name and then proceed when you're ready?
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Kathleen Wormsbecker, and my husband and I live at 11 Baycrest Drive. And that's in Oro-Medonte, just to the east of Penetanguishene Road and south of the proposed area for the industrial lands. And I will email you my 7 questions and concerns, but I'm going to highlight 3 of them. One of them is the buffer area. What are the municipal standards for buffer areas between residential and industrial lands? How can people in the whole area be assured that industrial lands will not be affected adversely by industrial development? And we know personally that 2 fields are considered the buffer area between Baycrest Drive and the industrial land. Is this enough? And the same, I think, would apply to all the people, 5-6 Side Road development, Line 1. What is this going to do? That's totally quiet area now. The next one I'm going to highlight is environmental implications. Preservation of water quality, wetland preservation, preserving the integrity of Lake Simcoe are all essential. Preservation of the water table for private wells, such as those on Baycrest Drive, is essential. That applies, of course, to all the other residents and farms as well. This proposed area includes Willow Creek, marsh on either side of the 5-6 Side Road, and wetlands on the McLean Farm, which are other places that I've biked or walked or skied in the past. So there are many more. Then my third point that I'll bring up to you is about infrastructure. Presently, there's one stormwater pond east of Penetanguishene Road and south of Georgian Drive. What would be the number, size, and location of ponds if this area is industrialized? Anyway, those are my 3 major ones, and I will email you the rest. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Any other members of the public? Seeing none, we will move on to item 11. Ms. Whitley, I understand you will be providing a presentation further to your report. If you'd like to proceed when ready. Oh, sorry, 1 second. Councillor Hutchison. Okay, so just so the public, and thank you, Councillor Hutchison, just so the public is aware, if you are going to speak towards any of the items that are on, now is the time you have to speak. You can't speak at the time when the presentation's being made. So Mr. Reed, would you like to speak now? Thank you. Then please come to the mic and give your name and you have 2 minutes.
Jonathan Reed,
I'll give you a little fluff in there, but 2 minutes is the time.
I'll get my point across in a couple of minutes here. Anyway, thank you for your time. Jonathan Reed here on behalf of Horseshoe Resort regarding the implementation of a MAT tax. Just to start out, we at Horseshoe Resort, we're not in support of the implementation of a MAT tax. Horseshoe Resort is the only full-service hotel within Oro-Medonte. I know there are some other areas of seasonal campgrounds and some former timeshare lands that will soon be sold in the future as residential properties, which still leaves Horseshoe Resort as the only full-service hotel in Oro-Medonte that would be contributing to the MAT tax. The list that staff has provided of all the municipalities that have implemented a MAT tax in the province of Ontario has a minimum of 15 to 20 hotels and more areas like Niagara Falls. The revenue that will be generated from a MAT tax in Oro-Medonte it just simply will not create enough revenue to drive enough tourism or make enough of an impact to drive additional tourism to Oro-Medonte. In October, we saw minimum wage go to $16.55 an hour. This was a $500,000 impact to the bottom line of Horseshoe Resort. In 2024, we're going to exceed $10 million in payroll at Horseshoe Resort, which we're very proud to say that majority of that $10 million goes right into the municipality of Oro-Medonte, residents of Oro-Medonte. The MAP bylaw was rescinded in 2020 due to the financial impact of the pandemic. Today, we're seeing the worst economic time since the pandemic. We're seeing interest rates go from 2% to 6%. The average mortgage debt in the province of Ontario is $462,000. That means Ontarians and residents of Oro-Medonte are going to see an average increase in their mortgage payments annually of $20,000. Blue Mountain Resort is our largest competitor. The town of the Blue Mountains has not adopted a MAT tax. So this will put Horseshoe Resort at a direct disadvantage to our largest competitor. Just in group rooms alone, Horseshoe Resort does 12,000 group room nights, which when you talk about $10 million in payroll, a lot of that payroll comes from those 12,000 room nights, aside from the recreation piece of ski and food and beverage and everything else. The impact of this will not just be felt on Horseshoe Resort. The impact of implementing a MAT tax will be felt to employees of Horseshoe Resort, which are residents of Oro-Medonte. Residents of Oro-Medonte that are going to be experiencing a $20,000 increase in their mortgage payments are now going to be seeing a decrease in their employment hours from Horseshoe Resort. They would see a decrease in the gratuities that are automatically added to their paychecks from these 12,000 group room nights plus recreation guests that come to the property. Council, please, when you're looking at this information, take a look at the numbers. One hotel and a few other seasonal businesses contributing to a MAT tax is not going to be a benefit. This is going to be a negative impact to residents of Oro-Medonte and one of the largest employers and taxpayers within this municipality.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Last call for anybody who would like to come forward. Okay, that is it for the open forum, Madam Clerk. So we'll jump back to item 11A. Ms. Whitley, when you're ready, please proceed.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council and the public. Thank you for attending today. I did provide quite an extensive report for Council's review, so I just have a short presentation today to just really touch on the key points that are within that report. So I'm just going to go through that now with you. This presentation will be posted publicly afterwards along with the report. So just going over what is a municipal accommodations tax. It is a transient accommodation tax regulation that came into effect on December 1st, 2017 that outlines the provisions for municipalities across Ontario to implement a MAT. It allows for single or lower tier municipalities to impose a tax on transient accommodations. A MAT is a revenue tool that the provincial government has given Ontario municipalities to further promote tourism as an economic driver. There are over 45 municipalities in Ontario that have since implemented a MAT, while additional municipalities are still considering implementation. There are examples listed in the attachment in the report. Each municipality that has implemented this tax is unique in all aspects, including the collection and methodology. The municipality has flexibility to make decisions on the process of a MAT through the creation of a bylaw. The MAT tax is collected by the businesses, or specifically the accommodators. It is mandatory and must be labeled as a MAT on the guest's receipt. HST applies to the all-in price of transient accommodation, including any MAT. Only the accommodation portion of a bill is applicable. So if there's other things that are added at somewhere like Horseshoe, where there's outdoor activities and things like that, breakfast, those cannot be included within the MAT tax. Municipalities can determine the type of transient accommodations. Examples of types of accommodations can include, but are not limited to, resorts, hotels, motels, campgrounds, marinas, and bed and breakfasts as examples. The regulation provides exemptions for properties that are owned by the Crown. This also includes rooms that are booked by government employees for work. One example that's a property that's owned by the Crown is provincial parks. The money is remitted to a designated entity, so it could be a third-party collection or through the municipality. At least 50% of the total amount collected must be dispersed to one or more local, nonprofit tourism entities that would be decided by council. The municipal retained portion, which would be 50% or less, has flexibility for spending that would be determined by council. A MAT can be used to increase investment in tourism development without relying on additional tax levy from the local businesses or residents. It can assist with local competitiveness and improving the tourism ecosystem if done properly and truly in collaboration with the industry. Providing some more information about what is considered an eligible tourism entity. So it must be a nonprofit whose mandate includes the promotion of tourism in Ontario or in a municipality. Any amounts paid to an eligible tourism entity shall be used by the eligible tourism entity for the exclusive use of promoting and developing tourism. MAT use parameters would be set along with an agreement with that selected entity. So just giving some background and timelines regarding MAT discussions and decisions in Oro-Medonte. So in 2019, the concept of a MAT was considered. At the beginning of 2020, a MAT report was prepared for council. Following that report, staff were directed to bring back a bylaw, and local tourism organizations were given the opportunity to present to council. Shortly after this request, the COVID-19 pandemic began, and that motion was rescinded. Council requested staff to report back as late as April 2021. In 2021, that updated report went to council, including a review of the impacts of the pandemic and the closure of a major accommodator in the township. Council at that time agreed to defer a MAT until the COVID-19 emergency was concluded and another roofed accommodator had opened in the township. In 2023, the Economic Development Roundtable brought back the discussion about a MAT. It was recommended for staff to bring back a report. In 2022, an additional roofed accommodator had reopened in the township, a portion of Carriage Ridge Resort. Council approved this action through the annual Economic Development Work Plan. In fall 2023, so where we are now, there was an information held with accommodators in September. We did request their feedback via email, and staff completed their background research for the report to council, which is now presented today. With regards to township accommodations, there are multiple types of transient accommodations in the township. Oro-Medonte is home to a small number of accommodations in comparison to other municipalities, such as more urban centers and including our surrounding cities. Accommodators were invited to that information session and requested to provide their comments on the potential implementation of a MAT. Depending on the accommodation's request, some comments were included as attachments with the report. Others were summarized as requested and included within the written report. Most respondents were not in favor. They had concerns about negative impacts on their business, including impacts to operations, administration, revenue, and not just limited to those. The tourism industry is still in recovery and the economy is unstable. Some of the larger businesses feel that their own internal marketing teams are more impactful than a collaborative approach to destination marketing. There are both benefits and challenges when considering the implementation of a MAT, and these are included in the report. So there are some decisions that are before Council today, which include the determination of whether or not to implement a MAT tax and what those next steps might be either way.
Thank you, Ms. Whitley. So Council, I'm going to open the table up for discussion and questions. Deputy Mayor Lavoie.
Thank you very much. And I would like to, I'm going to pose these questions, and I'm going to pose them with the notion that staff can respond at a later date. I know currently, and that's why I was looking at my phone, that there are 466 accommodators listed on AirDNA in on the, that would be VRBO and Airbnb in the township of Oro-Medonte. I would presume that there are a number who are operating legally. I also know that a number are operating illegally, and they pose a competitive threat to those businesses who operate legally in our jurisdiction. And I think as a council, we have an obligation to protect legal business. I do see in the act that you provided a link to that we can provide for exemptions to the tax, and that I'm not sure on the basis of how that can be done, or whether it's certain classifications of accommodators. Let's say we exempted hotels, for instance. And I'm not certain whether or not an act of our council can obligate Airbnb to collect a tax for us on the illegal operators, but I'm going to put that out there. So in any case, I'd like to see some investigation on that, because I think it's of value to ensure that we grow this business, these businesses as accommodators fairly, appropriately, on a legal and level playing field. For the most part, I believe the impact of this would be on an ongoing basis in our resort area of Horseshoe Valley. I'm not aware of any other accommodators outside of Ward 1, and I'll put that question out there. Are there any?
For sure, the majority of accommodators are in that area. There are, just depends again what council decides. You can choose what type of accommodations within the bylaw. So you could choose to include short-term rentals such as bookings that happen through Airbnb. Other municipalities are working through that or have already worked through that. With regards to other types of accommodations in the township, so there is transient campgrounds, glamping, and bed and breakfast.
Okay, thank you very much. So that's, I'll just conclude with that.
Okay. No supplemental today. It's interesting. Councillor Hutchison.
Thank you, Mayor Greenlaw. Certainly hearing what you're saying, Deputy Mayor Lavoie, and I'm having some trouble getting my head around the net benefit when we don't really know what the numbers would look like, because we don't know what, if we're going to introduce a MAT tax, what would we be taxing? So you did provide some financial estimates, so I appreciate that. And within this financial estimate, you're showing basically the tax revenue that the township would receive from this activity would be about $120,000. But then there has to be administration taken from that as well. So the decision has to be made whether there's a third-party administrator or whether we administer it internally, and I don't know what that cost would look like. So therefore, I don't understand what the total net benefit would be. You know, and I'm looking at weighing out what's the net benefit versus a number of the concerns that have been raised, such as the concern from Mr. Reed, you know, who absolutely represents the largest hotel, and the only hotel that we have here in Oro-Medonte, and I can appreciate the concerns that he's brought forward. So for me, I have to really understand the numbers behind this before I could make a decision, and we don't know what those numbers would look like unless we know what we would or would not be taxing. So I don't want to get into a circle here. I think we need to take maybe some further comments back and get another report back in front of council so that we can make a more financially based decision that would weigh out the pros and cons for the operators within Oro-Medonte.
Thank you, Councillor Hutchison. Any other comments? Councillor Schell?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Greenlaw. I agree with Deputy Mayor Lavoie on his comments. When we look at traveling, we all travel, and most places we go to in Ontario, or quite a few, 46 of them anyways, municipalities collect the MAT tax. And my understanding of the use of the MAT tax is to help develop tourism into the community, and that doesn't come out of the pocket of the providers. It comes out of the pocket of the users. And from the years that I've traveled around, you're on a holiday, you pay the price, and you go ahead. You're having fun, and you include that in your cost. So I can see it being a benefit to the township. I can see it being a benefit to Horseshoe in helping bring tourism in, and maybe even by providing some events that are going to help bring more people to the community and stay at Horseshoe and stay at other places. So, and it's a gift in a sense where the government is giving us this opportunity. I think it would be a good thing to look into.
Thank you very much, Councillor Schell. Councillor Young?
Yeah, just a question to Deputy Mayor Lavoie. Peter, I didn't quite understand when you were referring to short-term rentals, which of course are illegal, and consideration for a MAT tax. I didn't quite understand that. But just further to that, it was on the news last week there that, and I forget which entity it is in Europe, but they're suing Airbnb for tax evasion in the billions. That's with a B. So I don't know what Toronto's doing in terms of collecting how successful. I assume they are, as well as Arroyo, which has just legalized short-term rentals, and I assume there's a MAT tax on that as well. But if you just clarify that for me, Peter, I guess I misheard you.
Yeah, just to clarify it, and you know, this is probably not all of the operators, but there are 466 currently listed. That number is actually up from 70 at the time we had the ULT hearing in March of 2022, for probably various reasons, but nonetheless, they are being listed. There are going to be 70 or 80 of them who will be legitimate and legal as short-term rental operators because they're likely in the V1 zone, or they're already bylaw amended legitimate bed and breakfast, operating as a bed and breakfast with the operator present and providing whatever services they see fit. So does that clarify the question?
Yeah, that clarifies it, Peter. I'll listen to you more intently next time.
But thank you very much, Councillor Young.
Yeah, so I think what Deputy Mayor Lavoie is stating is that it is a huge number, but since Kerry Chills has opened up under the conditions it's in, and if you look at the mapping, there's a cluster up around that area. So it's likely because it grabs it by unit versus then by building. So, you know, at the end of the day, I think, Ms. Whitley, what I'm hearing and what I concur with is we really need to understand what is the net value of the MAT tax being implemented. I know, I believe, and you can comment and correct me if I'm wrong, but the MAT tax that is in the deck is predominantly Horseshoe Resort. So it doesn't include Burles Creek. And so I think, you know, to be fair and make this, because I don't want to have to change it to the horseshoe tax because there's really only one main contributor. But what we need to understand is just how much net value is there to take advantage to help promote tourism within this township. So I think if a report come back is what I'm hearing from Councillor Hutchison and the other members is we need to kind of really know before we give it the full green light is that yes, look at it is worthwhile, because if the net at the end of the day is $50,000, it doesn't make sense, right? So, Councillor, and we're going to get the accountant chiming in here now, Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and this is actually through to yourself. I just want clarification on the net benefit to whom, because at the end of the day, we're asking the people who are accommodating them to raise their prices by 4%, with a guarantee that 2% of those funds are going to be used for promotional activities to get more people to come back to their establishment, with a lot of gray area in what the other 2% is being used, because it's in the legislature, it's not required to be used for increasing tourism to the area. So that's where my concern for if I was an accommodator in this sense is I've asked my customers to raise what they're going to pay by 4% with only an expectation that 2% of that is going to come back potentially to me. So who's the benefit for?
That's correct. And Jen, do you want to explain how the 2 and 2%? So 2% is to be spent directly on tourism, and the other 2% is to be spent on other components within the municipality.
So if council decided on a 4% MAT tax, as an example, 50% of the total amount collected has to go to a tourism entity of council's choice. The other 50% or less is up to council's discretion on how they want to spend that money. There's no requirements with that within the regulation.
No. Does that bring clarity? Okay. Councillor Hutchison.
Thank you, Mayor Greenlaw. And just again, for me, yes, so that 2% goes to an entity that we have not decided on. There's 2 currently nonprofit tourism organizations in Oro-Medonte that operate. So we'd have to make a choice of either one or the other or both. And so then you're diluting the money and doubling the effort there, or set up a municipal services corporation to deal with an unknown amount of dollars right now. It's very difficult to make any kind of a decision on this, not knowing those components. And if I will say, if I was operating a hotel and that 2% was going to a nonprofit tourism organization that I have no control over what their messaging is, I would have a difficult time digesting that as well. I'm just putting that out there.
It's out there. Councillor Schell.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Greenlaw, through you to Ms. Whitley. My understanding is that the 50% would be going out to a not-for-profit, and the other 50% goes to the municipality, but both those 50% are to be used for promoting tourism. Is that correct?
That's not a requirement, no. The 50% towards the that goes to the municipality does not have to be spent on tourism. That's up to council's decision and or staff recommendations, however you want to go about that, but it's not a requirement.
Okay, I'll have to reread that. Thank you.
No, so like it could go to roads, it could go to other things to help the municipality. Councillor Young.
Yeah, just following up on Laurie's indicator that there's two nonprofits. I suppose if the MAT tax were implemented, each could get 1% of the 2%. But I'm mindful, having read the report of Horseshoe Valley's thought process, perhaps they, as a possibility of utilizing or at least controlling the amount of money that is spent, or at least the MAT tax is spent towards tourism. In terms of a self-promotion thing, that they feel that they could handle it as well, that option being in the report.
Please comment. I know what you're going to say, Jennifer, but if you could please comment on this. I think I know what you're going to say to bring clarity to Councillor Young's comment.
Through you, Mayor Greenlaw, to several questions. Sorry, there were several along the way that I've been trying to kind of keep track of. I'm not sure I'm going to say what you think I'm going to say, but I'm trying to figure that out. Staff would recommend, and it's in the report, that if this was to go forward, that there would be like an advisory committee where industry could participate and look at having a say in that. We feel very strongly that we want to hear from industry and work together collaboratively if this was to go forward. So that's one piece. Speaking about the administration fee that Councillor Hutchinson had asked about. So the average administration fee is roughly 2.5% if hired out through an external organization. And that is in the report, but not the actual number. So if we were looking at the number that's estimated in the report at 240,000, we're looking at about 6,000 that would be towards administration of that MAT tax yearly. With regards to the estimate, we are really challenged as staff because accommodations don't have to provide any sort of numbers to us of how many rooms they have, what type of rooms they have, what they charge per nightly. It's a challenge to get those exact numbers. As Horseshoe, one example is there is multiple types of accommodation with varying room costs per night depending on the season, etc. So we just looked at an average of what that could potentially be. Again, depends on the year, depends on the season, etc. So it can really vary. And same with camping, like it was very difficult to get any numbers. So just trying to get an estimate of what that could look like was challenging as it is. So tried to do what we could with what we somewhat knew to give some sort of idea of what that could look like.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions at this time? Madam Clerk, can we hear the motion?
Moved by Young, second by Bard. It is recommended that CS 2023-28, Jennifer Whitley, Economic Development Officer, Municipal Accommodations Tax be received and adopted. That Council, and this part is blank, support or does not support the implementation of a municipal accommodation tax, MAT, and that should Council support the implementation of a MAT, that the following elements be approved. A MAT tax of 4%, a MAT tax applied to all applicable transient accommodations as noted within report CS 2023-28. Target the start date of September 1st, 2024, be set to be refined in 2024. and that a public process, as outlined in the report, be initialized to select the nonprofit tourism entity. And that township accommodations be advised of council's decision under the Economic Development Officer's signature.
Thank you. I think what I'm hearing from council is we're not at that stage yet. We need to have a better understanding of how much revenue will be generated, and I don't know if that's an impossibility or if they're to make the decision at this point in time. From what my colleagues have brought forward, we don't know what we're approving or chasing down the road. We need to know. We need to have a more clarity as to how much revenue would be generated, gross and net. And we know it's not going to be exact, but I think we need that information before we move forward at this point in time. Councillor Bard.
Thanks. Through you, I guess, to the floor and Ms. Whitley. Thank you. I think it was very thorough. I understand the process and I really appreciate this. One of the questions I have, though, is we keep talking about, well, staff, and that seems to be a problem that we have. So I'd like to know more about how much time would need to be dedicated to this and how much of a cost from that. And does that eventually, these little bits and pieces that we're asking staff to do, does that add up to another job that we can't fill here? So I'd like a staff component and the time dedicated to that, please.
Yeah, and that could be worked into it, because if it's 2.5% is what the administrative fee is, that will determine how much revenue is there. And then the question is, how much time is staff spending on collecting or making sure that these revenues are collected? So, Donna?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I appreciate the tough situation that you're dealing with, given the numbers that we have. I think to Councillor Bard's question, that based on how other municipalities have administered it, we can provide you with that clarity on implications and impacts to existing staff's time. That is something we can do. I'm not sure how we would be in a position to provide more accurate information on the potential revenues when there's no requirement for the accommodators to provide us with their average daily rate, their occupancy levels. We might be able to determine the number of rooms, but some of that would be confidential. So I do think it does put us in a bit of a bind to provide you with information that we don't have access to, and quite frankly, the accommodators don't have to give it to us. Nor do we know that what they give us would be accurate, and how does it compare this year over last year, over 5 years from now. So I do think it is a challenging request, but the staff time we can accommodate.
Okay. Nellie?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to add to that the cost benefit component was identified in the report. There is a percentage that if we got a third-party consultant or third-party group to administer the collection of these and monitoring that is quite minimal. And currently we don't have the staff to do that administration, but if you were looking at a cost benefit, it is quite minimal to actually administer that.
Okay. You know, I think what I've seen is we've captured likely one of the biggest potential contributors in the report, and that would be Horseshoe Resort. I think the big question is how much revenue potentially would be generated from the camping facilities at Burles Creek, because that will, other than that, everything else is likely much less significant in volume. So I think that's something we need to kind of have a better understanding of.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council, we can attempt to do an estimate of that as well, But again, we are in a similar situation in terms of types of campsites, number of nights. They have different campsites that are rented as part of their process at different rates. So again, recognizing that it's an estimate, we can absolutely come back with that, knowing that it will be our best understanding of the industry.
Okay, so understanding the complexity without getting into a bunch of dialogue, unless it's important, what would you as council want a more detailed report, or do you just want to vote on this as it is? Deputy Mayor Lavoie.
I think there are only really two questions in my mind: when we might want to start, and who it might involve. So I think we could move forward on the proviso that those two determinators are left blank, Madam Clerk, as to the further discretion of council at a later date, pending more information. The information I'd like to see is whether or not we can cause Airbnb to collect a MAT tax on short-term rental operators. Because it's a mug's game if only the legal people are paying the money.
Okay.
So I'll leave it at that, and I, that's the part I'd be interested in hearing. I mean, I think it's 4% of something. We know that. We know that as a community, we either go ahead or we decide, hey, look, maybe Town of Blue Mountains is offering a better deal for people, so we want to remain competitive with our accommodators. So let's not do it yet. Wait for them or something like that, something that's fair. Thank you.
So,
Councillor Hutchison, and my apologies. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
I was just going to ask council if they wish to defer the matter for a future staff report.
I believe that is the appetite of council, and I don't want to cut people off, but I would say that's it. If somebody still feels they'd like to make some further comments, then I definitely want to give you the opportunity, Councillor Hutchison.
Thank you. Well, thank you through you, Mayor Greenlaw. Deputy Mayor Lavoie, you hit on a point for me, which is, I'm appreciating the fact that we have one hotel here, that being Horseshoe Resort, that does supply jobs to a lot of local families, and they're in competition currently with the Town of Blue Mountains that does not have a MAT tax. So perhaps we look at this when Town of Blue Mountains goes that route. Then it's a more even playing field for our major hotel here.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Greenlaw. Just a quick statement. I know I lost it. Darn. I waited so long to say it. Oh my goodness. I'll save it.
Yeah, thank you. I listened to Peter there. What you suggested, Peter, is waiting, as well as Laurie, to see what happens with Blue Mountain. I think it's a wise position to take in terms of competition. And I think we all read Chris Perver's from Lake Country, his submission there that they administer, if I remember the report correctly, they administer it for the city of Aurelia, the MAT tax, and they are accounted. The word I'm looking for is it's reviewed, I guess, by an accountant to ensure that everything's above board type of thing. And but again, it comes back to how do we know for sure? Well, we don't. But again, it's they administered and it's reviewed by an accountant at yearly, and I think they were contracted to do to 2028.
Yes, thank you. You reminded me. Aurelia brought in $500,000 last year on MAT tax. And I was going to suggest that probably the reason for that is because everybody was coming to play here in Oro-Medonte. And us having Burles Creek, Boots and Hearts, we have a potential to bring in some good revenue as well.
Thank you. Okay, so council deferring this matter at this time? Well, Madam Clerk, read the motion and we'll call the vote, please.
Moved by Young, seconded by Bard. It is recommended, or be it resolved, that CS 2023-28, Jennifer Whitley, Economic Development Officer, Municipal Accommodations Tax, be received and deferred pending a further staff or report back from staff.
Okay, thank you. I'll call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Jennifer.
Mr. Mayor, my apologies. I did not have my mic on, and IT has advised me of that. So I will read the motion again.
Okay, so my apologies. Go ahead.
Moved by Young, seconded by Bard. Be it resolved that CS 2023-28, Jennifer Whitley, Economic Development Officer, Municipal Accommodations Tax, be received and deferred, pending a further report back from staff.
Thank you. Call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, so Madam Clerk, may we have the motion for item 11B?
Moved by Clark, seconded by Lavoie. Be it resolved that FES 2023-01, Hugh Murray, Director, Fire and Emergency Services / Fire Chief, and Sean Binns, Director, Operations and Community Services, Fire Station Updates, Hawkstone, Rugby, and Shanty Bay Fire Halls be received and adopted. That Council deem the fire stations at 375 Line 11 South, Hawkstone, and 1904 Old Barry Road East, Rugby, surplus to the township, and further that staff dispose of the properties in accordance with bylaw 2021-126, acquisition and disposition of land.
Okay, members of council, floor is now open for questions or comments regarding this matter. Councillor Young.
Yeah, question to Mr. Binns or Nellie. I'm just curious that the sale of the one on Old Barry Road and the other one there, I think the one on Old Barry Road was $470,000 was estimated. And I'm just curious, why wouldn't that money, I know it's going to reserves, why wouldn't that money be used to pay for the cost of the renovations to the Shanty Bay, or at least the other one there? It's a basic question that...
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to you, Councillor. That is the whole objective, really, is to take the funds to put into a reserve to then be determined by council on what those reserves will be used for. So they very well could be used for that, but there are a lot of capital projects on the go with the township, and that will be council's decision.
Thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Chief Murray or to Mr. Binns. How do the sale or transition of these buildings to other uses affect the continued success of our fire master plan? In Ward 3, I have concerns about response times, specifically from the very southeast end in the Baycrest area, for example, or Barry Terrace area, with the fire services not having access to the old Shanty Bay Hall.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, Chief Murray is on the line, virtual, and that would be a question that certainly the chief would be able to respond to. Councillor Clark.
Thank you. Chief Murray, if you could go ahead and answer that question for us, please.
Sure, thank you. Through to Councillor Clark, through you, Mayor. The part of the master fire plan identified moving the Shanty Bay station to better serve the whole response area of the station number 1. So where it was in Shanty Bay served made it difficult to serve the whole area in a proper response time. Moving the station closer to Highway 11 corridor, if you picture a big circle around the station, Shaney Bay's area is quite large. So when it was in Shaney Bay proper, if you put that circle around the station, half of the station's response area was in Lake Simcoe. So it was taking longer to get to the furthest points of the response area. So the purpose of moving the station was to better serve the whole response area, not just one particular area. These stations were put in place many, many years ago when they were villages, long before amalgamation here and long before Oro was a township itself. They were all individual little communities. And that was one of the reasons the station was moved to where it was. So the station, old station in Shaney Bay, is not manned, does not have equipment. Everything operates out of the current station now. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I hope I am.
Supplemental.
I very much appreciate the clarification, Chief Murray. I guess my concern is we did move the station away from that densely populated area that is at the border of Barrie, and I was looking for clarity if there is the necessity for an automatic aid agreement because the response times to that area in particular were negatively impacted from where the fire hall is, and Barrie is very close and has a full-time complement that could potentially be the difference between a full-blown structure fire or a vehicle fire.
So if I can, yes, we did move a little further away from that area, but we also moved closer to a lot more area of more residents within our response area. So shifting the station. So for instance, last year we had 3 calls down in that area. 2 were false calls and 1 was what we call a perceived emergency, a human perceived emergency where somebody thought there was something wrong. This year we've had 3 calls in that area, similar type calls, false alarm type calls. The majority of the calls for Station 1 run Highway 11 corridor and from Shanty Bay towards Line 7. Now, all that was looked at when the master fire plan was implemented, and yes, there are homes down in that area. We do not have a automatic aid agreement, but when we've needed to, we would call for mutual aid from the city of Barrie.
Okay, thank you very much, Chief Murray. Any other further questions at this time? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, we'll have the motion and call the vote.
Mr. Mayor, I did read the motion.
Yes, okay, thank you.
If you would like it read again, I'm
Does
happy
anyone
to
need
do
the
so.
motion read again? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. So now we'll move to item 11C. Madam Clerk, could we have the motion for 11C, please?
Moved by Lavoie, seconded by Hutchison. Be it resolved that FES 2023-02, Hugh Murray, Director, Fire and Emergency Services / Fire Chief, re-911 dispatch agreement be received and adopted. That the clerk and mayor be authorized to sign the agreement. That the clerk bring forward the appropriate bylaw for council's consideration. And that the City of Aurelia's Fire Chief be notified of council's decision under the Fire Chief's signature.
Floor is open. Any questions or comments for discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. We'll now go to item 11D. May we have the motion for 11D, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Hutchison, seconded by Shell. Be it resolved that FES 2023-03, Hugh Murray, Director, Fire and Emergency Services, Fire Chief, / Fire Chief, re-2024 Fire Dispatch Agreement be received and adopted. That the clerk and mayor be authorized to sign the agreement. That the clerk bring forward the appropriate bylaw for council's consideration. And that the City of Aurelia's Fire Chief be notified of council's decision under the Fire Chief's signature.
Very similar to the last one. Any questions now? No? Okay, well then we'll call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. May we have a motion for item 11E, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Young, seconded by Clark. Be it resolved that DS 2023-092 George Vadamoncure, I practiced that earlier, Interim Director, Development Services, re-proposed a City of Orillia settlement area boundary expansion be received, that the Chief Administrative Officer be directed to prepare a letter to the City of Orillia with the Township of Oro-Medonte's comments based on the conclusions referenced in report number DS 2023-092 and any matters raised by council at the November 8, 2023 council meeting. My apologies for the name.
Now, I just so I know, Mr. Von Coeur, I'm gonna get it, Pete. I'm gonna get it. Just bear with me. Would you like to speak to this at all, or would you just want to table questions?
Thank you, Worship. I do have a few comments that I can make just for the benefit of members of council and the audience that may be watching the meeting, if you like.
Yes, please. When you're ready, please. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's interesting today, just for the benefit of members of council. Today is November 8th, and it's World Planning Day. And here we are talking about a planning subject. And the theme outlined by the Canadian Institute of Planners is that on this day, planners and communities all over the world come together to celebrate how good planning improves the lives of people and benefits society at large, creating places to live, work, and play together. So that's the message for World Planning Day today. So I won't go into a lot of detail today as you have my report, but I will provide some background for members of council and those viewing the meeting. Since 2018, the City of Orillia has been engaged in a land use planning exercise under the Municipal Comprehensive Review requirements of the Provincial Growth Plan. The city needs to determine how to accommodate a growth forecast of 49,000 people, approximately 7,300 new housing units, and 26,000 jobs, approximately 1,500 new jobs by 2051. The outcome of the review is to be submitted to the province for approval. From the beginning, the city engaged the municipalities along its border, the townships of Oro-Medonte, Severn, and Ramira, in its land use planning exercise. It also engaged the public in a series of open houses, the last being of June of this year. To assist it, the city commissioned studies to determine their future land need requirements. Hempson Consultants undertook a land needs assessment and determined the city needs additional land to meet its population and employment targets. It was also noted that the city could also explore intensification within its boundaries to address its population requirements or implement a combination of the two approaches. In 2022, the city began an intensification review, which is still underway. After the needs assessment was completed, the city engaged WSP consultants to identify lands that would be suitable for development to meet the city's needs. WSP identified 252.9 hectares, 625 acres in 2 parcels in Oro-Medonte, along with lands in Severn. The lands are identified in the preliminary concept plan that was attached to the report. Parcel A, the largest parcel, is located west of Line 15 North, south of Bass Lake Side Road, north of the Old Berry Road, and approximately halfway across the concession. It consists of approximately 176 acres or 400 hectares or 436 acres of land, proposed predominantly for community uses, residential, and some employment lands. Parcel B is located south of Memorial Drive, west of Woodland Drive, east of the Forest Home Industrial Park and Highway 11, and about halfway down Woodward Drive across from the industrial park to the west. Approximately 1/3 of the lands have been identified as employment lands, and the remainder is designated natural heritage features or greenlands. After the open house, the city asked for the township's comments on the proposed boundary expansion areas. Staff looked at the city's proposal in the context of the provincial policy statement, the growth plan, the county official plan, Oro-Medonte's official plan, both existing and updated, and the township's strategic plan. Staff from other departments looked at servicing, stormwater management, and the road network in the area. From this review, staff are recommending that council indicate to the city that it does not support a settlement boundary expansion on the lands identified as Parcel A. The reason being is that these lands could address needs in the township for the creation of affordable and medium-density housing on municipal services achieved through a servicing partnership agreement with the city, if possible. The township is well served with single-family residential, estate residential, shoreline, and resort-style developments in a number of settlement areas across the township, but does not have a supply of affordable or medium-density housing that young people or retirees can afford. The area identified as Parcel 8 could support this type of housing. Further studies would be required prior to development occurring, and these have been identified in my report. The area identified as Parcel B is proposed to be employment land surrounded by natural heritage and greenlands on 3 sides. Staff are recommending that council indicate to the city that would have no objection to Parcel B lands being included for possible expansion. The area is somewhat isolated from development, and the greenlands are an effective buffer between the employment lands and what could possibly be a new boundary. Finally, staff are recommending that the city look at every opportunity within its boundary to intensify to meet its population targets. In closing, staff would like to again thank the City of Orillia for the opportunity to comment on its growth options. I'm happy to answer any questions members of council may have.
Thank you very much, George. That was an excellent report and very detailed. I guess the one question I have is because I know the last presentation that came back from what they're looking for along the 15th line. Is there any other municipality that you're aware of that doesn't use roads as the boundary of division between municipalities? So although they're saying they only need this, would they not almost have to take over to the 14th in order to have a clear boundary line?
Your worship, not necessarily. I'm familiar with the boundaries, say, between the township of Tiny and the town of Penetanguishene, which kind of cuts cross country, follows property lines and whatnot. And, the boundary between the town of Midland and the township of Tiny and the township of Tay, again, crosses municipal property, not necessarily road boundaries. I think the answer is that there needs to be an effective buffer, whether it's greenland, park, open space of some sort, so that there is a delineation between the two communities. Because if it does abut up against the road, and I can think of one example, sometimes you need to enter into a municipal boundary road agreement for the maintenance of that road. And where is the line? Is it in the middle of the road? Is it on the township side, or is it on the city side? So those types of agreements are required when a municipal road is used as a boundary.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that clarity. Any other further comments or questions at this time? Councillor Bard.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Thank you. It's very clear. It's a good summary of the situation there. I agree that I'm not in favor of Orillia expanding their boundary there, but I'm also concerned for the residents that are there, and they're not going to want to see a subdivision of any kind in that watershed of Bass Lake, and with the traffic concerns that we have in those narrow roads and servicing Orillia. So yeah, I agree, but not 100% agree, I guess. I just want to make that clear.
Agree to disagree. Well, that's nice. Thank you. It's all good. It's a complex issue, and there's no perfect upside to everything. That area is challenged, especially with the lake there and the traffic flow through a very limited, very, very tight roadway. So, Councillor Young?
Excuse me, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to comment what George said there. I think Scarlet Line is one that is a boundary line, and as you indicated, one side is Oro-Medonte. And so we do have one right in Oro-Medonte in Ward 6.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so no further questions. I'll call the vote. All in favor? Madam Clerk, you already read the motion, correct? You keep looking at me like I'm
Yes.
doing something wrong again.
If you
Okay. Do you want me to let you introduce them again so you
No,
can
that's
practice? No? Okay, so now we're on to item 12, reports of municipal officers. And there is a report to be received. So do we want to have the motion first, Madam Clerk, please?
Yes. Moved by Shell, seconded by Bard. Be it resolved that the report as listed under item number 12, reports of municipal officers for information only, be received.
Okay. Any comments or questions regarding the report? It's very thorough. There's Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, this is for Nellie if she's still online. I was just wondering what the status of our audit was for last fiscal year, or maybe Mr. Dunn could step in and give me a quick answer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could, through you to Councillor Clark, Ms. Morrow is online, at least, there you go. Yes, please, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I just left the room to allow other people to report to you. But yes, our audit is in the final steps with the auditors, and we should have a report to you before the end of the year.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? I may put this through Mr. Van de Becours, not in here, but I noticed the updates on the automotive park. There's been no change. Is anyone received any communication on that development?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could, George has just left the chambers. Actually, he's on his way to another meeting. Mm-hmm. So Mr. Vadamoncourt, Mr. Karaskakis, and Mr. Dunn are meeting with Mr. Campbell tomorrow morning, Mr. Mayor. I'm not certain of the update, other than we have a 30-minute short briefing with the principal of Oro Station.
Okay, no, perfect. I look forward to, hopefully they've got plans to move forward and get that opened and operating shortly. So, okay, so any other questions from members of council? Seeing none, then we'll call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. Reports of members of council. Are there any updates for members of council as township representatives with our partners and agencies? Councillor Hutchison.
Just showed the wrong card. Yes, thank you. I'd like to report on two different committees, one being Heritage. I'm really pleased to report that the Heritage Committee has made great strides in the identification of properties for heritage designation. Currently, all owners of these properties are in agreement with the designation, so we will be moving forward with those over the remainder of this year and into 2024. And also, currently, the committee is reviewing the costing of the placement of 3 cemetery signs, and we should have some costs and perhaps recommendations to council before the end of this year. And the SSCA is currently working on their strategic plan, and they've gathered community input throughout surveys that have been available through their website and on social media. And they have provided their annual report, which is available for viewing on their website. And I'd like to personally thank Michelle Jacoby, who sat at the last board meeting in my absence. So those are my reports. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Young and then Councillor Shell.
Yeah, I just want to ask you a question, Councillor Hutchison. Can we get a list of those properties that have been designated heritage? I'm just interested in that. I read the one on line 6 as not being designated as a heritage property, and what was the reason for that?
Sorry, one on line 6 being...
Well, that's I don't recall the house number, but there was one on line 6 that was, for whatever reason, not deemed
I
to
believe
be...
that's the old schoolhouse that's on line 6. And it's been renovated to such a degree that it no longer has its heritage characteristics. But yes, if you go to the site, our heritage site on the township website, you'll see all of the designated properties and the ones being considered for designation.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Schell.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Greenlaw. To the floor, the Aurelia Practitioners Recruitment Committee have extended their recruiting to the countries of Ireland and Scotland to try and get back some of our students that have had to go over there to get their degrees, and they're becoming very successful with that. And there was a little bit of a talk about the future possibilities of a hospital expansion that would be connected with the University of Aurelia.
Perfect. That's good news. Excellent news. Any other announcements? Councillor Bard.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Greenlaw, through you. So I'm not sure whether this is a report or an announcement, but the Chamber of Commerce is starting up their Mystical Lights again December 1st. So it'll be the first 2 weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday in December, and then full-time the third weekend to the end of the month. And they're still looking for, or you're still able to put in a display, so you can go through the website to sponsor or put in a display. So
okay, perfect.
A report.
Oh, that's great. It's that time of year. We're not far from Christmas. And Deputy Mayor Lavoie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to draw to the public's attention that the County of Simcoe is currently in their budget discussions and has proposed an increased tax levy of 4.45%. This is a preliminary budget, and Council of the County will continue to deliberate on this matter, but I would just provide that indication as just a direction in which the county is going with regard to municipal taxes. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, no other reports. Does anyone have announcements? Councillor Hutchison, then Councillor Bard, then Councillor Young.
Thank you, Mayor Greenlaw, through you. I have two announcements. One, first of all, I will be holding a Ward 1 Town Hall meeting on November the 21st at 6 p.m. at Horseshoe Resort, and everyone's welcome. The meeting will include a Year 1 review for Ward 1, a message from the Mayor, a community center update, and OPP traffic, presentation on traffic and seniors fraud. There will be plenty of time for questions and answers, and you can note your attendance by visiting the Eventbrite site that I've set up. It is available on my councillor website. You can access it that way. That way we can actually gauge the potential attendance and enough seats in the room, but it's not necessary. Again, everyone's welcome, and we look forward to seeing you there. And then this Friday night, myself, Councillor Schell, and Deputy Mayor Lavoie will be donning our custom aprons and participating in the We Unite Soup Off, which is going to take place at Horseshoe Resort. It is a competition for making soup, and it's a fundraiser for We Unite. It's a grassroots organization based in Horseshoe Valley who provide a number of supports for local families. And then the soup itself is donated to the Redwood Park community. So that's it.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Good luck to the three of you. Councillor Bard.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. The Aurelia Public Library has a donation drive that they've just started up, and this is specifically to revitalize the family department. And libraries are such an important part of our communities, and they're becoming more and more used for a variety of different things. So operating expenses are covered through taxation, but to revitalize some of the deteriorating furniture and to make things more welcoming and update and comfortable for the community. So they've started this drive. So donations can be made through the website. Tax receipts are available, and also some branded merchandise is available. So to support a good cause. Thank you.
Thank you. And Deputy Mayor Lavoie.
Well, thank you very much. I just wanted to make note of the fact that December 2nd at 5:30, the Harborwood Oro Station Christmas Parade will be taking place, a neighborhood tradition. Just stay tuned to their Facebook site for further information. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Young.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Again, two announcements. One is the Christmas parade is going to be held in Moonstone there, and that will be held on December 3rd. Anyone wanting to participate can attend, and just advise Parks and Rec up there of your request to attend or be in the parade. The second announcement is I am holding a town hall as well, and it's tentatively scheduled for November 29th at Mount St. Louis. The time will be 6 p.m. Again, everyone's welcome for that to attend. Confirmation of the date will be next week. I'm waiting to hear back from one person, that being Deb Van Natter, who will explain the process of obtaining an AED or defibrillator for the Moonstone area on that. And Mr. Sean Binns will attend as well, and he'll give an overview of what's planned for the Moonstone and Vasey areas in terms of recreation facilities, what's planned and what's on board. So he'll give an update on that. And so again, that's tentatively November 29th, and that date will be confirmed next week with Mount St. Louis there. So just waiting to hear back from one person to confirm that date. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any others? I believe in Councillor Bard, if maybe you can confirm, there's a Warminster Santa Claus parade on the 16th of December.
Yes, I was going to wait for a further meeting to announce that, but yes.
Oh, no.
December 16th.
I just want to make, so it's a Saturday this year versus
It is
Sunday.
a Saturday, not a Sunday.
And is it still a 20-mile route?
That I do not know.
You know, if the counselors are coming, wear your Fitbits and you'll get your steps in, because it is a greatly attended, but it's a long route. So, and I guess the only announcement I would like to bring forward is I think we really need to thank Vanessa Cooper and Rosalind Llewellyn for putting on an amazing Remembrance Day celebration that we had last Sunday. And understanding today is that of the Indigenous veterans, and I hope everyone gets out and remembers the people who gave their lives to give us what we have today. So remember Saturday to go out, wear your poppy, and support our veterans. And other than that, I think that's it for announcements today. Consent agenda. Does anyone have anything from the consent agenda that they would like pulled or comment on at this time? Seeing none, may we have the consent agenda motion, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Clark, seconded by Hutchison. Be it resolved that the staff recommendations with respect to the items listed under consent agenda correspondence be adopted as printed.
All in favor? That is carried. May we have a motion for the draft bylaws under item 18?
Moved by Lavoie, seconded by Young. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2023-090 be amended to remove Shannon Stevenson from Schedule B. That bylaw 2023-024 and 2023-025 also be read a first, second, and third time, passed, being engrossed by the clerk, signed and sealed by the mayor.
Thank you. Are there any questions on any of these draft or these bylaws at this time? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? There are no closed session. We completed all them earlier this evening. May we have a confirmation bylaw motion, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Bard, seconded by Shell. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2023-096, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held on Wednesday, November the 8th, 2023, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, being engrossed by the clerk, signed and sealed by the mayor.
All in favor? That is carried. And may we have a motion to adjourn?
Moved by Hutchison, seconded by Clark. Be it resolved that we do now adjourn at 5:31 p.m.
Thank you. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you, everyone, for joining us stream and in chambers tonight. And everyone go out and do celebrate Remembrance Day on Saturday. Thank you.